Welcome to Conversations with Des. I'm Des Blanchfield. Today I'm joined by Dan Rodriguez, Corporate Vice President and General Manager for Network Platforms Group at Intel. Dan, it's great to see you again. So as I said, we spoke a few months ago on Conversations with Des on the podcast, and it's great to have you on the show again on camera. I wonder, before we dive into the whole exciting topic of 5G and radio access networks and edge infrastructure, we've seen some amazing global response by Intel to the global pandemic. There's no surprise to our audience around the world that we are currently dealing with COVID-19, the global pandemic. I wonder if you could just give us a few highlights around some of those exciting initiatives.
Yeah, first, let me just start with when we think about COVID-19 and Intel's top priority, it really is managing the coronavirus situation in a way that protects the health and well-being of all of our team members truly around the globe, while we still try to maintain our operations so we have business continuity for the many customers we have around the globe. And I think as we all can really see is that technology is playing a very critical role in all of our day-to-day lives, whether it's kids at home doing online schooling, or us having a conversation over social media and conducting business. And I'm quite proud that Intel is a big part of that essential network going forward. But in addition to this, we're also applying this technology and expertise to really help the world really with this global pandemic. And most recently, we just announced an additional pledge of around $50 million in a technology fund that's going to help really speed access or speed scientific research, providing technology at the point of patient care, and even help with online education. And this is on top of the $10 million worth of donations we made to support all sorts of communities around the globe. So overall, obviously, we all have a big role to play to combat this pandemic, but I am very proud to work for an organization that really takes care of its people and ensuring that they're healthy and they have a great well-being, but also a company that's out there and supporting the communities.
Indeed, and congratulations on those, both exciting initiatives in the last two you mentioned, but also just on the general thought leadership and direction that the organization's been able to provide around the globe. Just watching them as an outsider myself, just seeing some of the communication that comes coming out, it's just been a good, solid, clear, consistent message that yes, it's a challenge, but it's business as usual as much as possible. And it's great to see the initiatives around making sure the staff are okay, the organization's okay, the ecosystem's okay, because you're in a very unique position between sort of being in the region where the initial outbreak was with manufacturing design and so forth, all the way through to the other side of the planet. Intel is in a very unique position, more than many companies, in that it's so global and so deeply integrated that it's impacted across all of that space. So congratulations, and I'm glad you and your crew personally and professionally are well. I wonder if we can now dive into some of the fun topics we've got to discuss. I'd love to get your perspective on the current state of the telco industry with regards to 5G and radio access networks, or RAN. I wonder if you could just give us some high-level overview of some of the trends you're seeing around 5G and radio access networks.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Des. And when I think about really Intel's journey in 5G, as well as just the journey of the overall telecommunication industry, I can't help but harken back to really a decade ago when we started what we would call network transformation. And this journey really started directly with Intel partnering with the comm service providers as well as the ecosystem. And the simple goal was bring IT or cloud-like scale and agility into the world of networking. And of course, since that time, we've invested in all sorts of different CPU technologies, driving network optimizations in there, as well as platform ingredients to truly allow the world to run all sorts of communications workloads or networking workloads on general purpose servers. In addition to this, we also partnered with the world. We've done things such as, with the comm service providers, create the ETSI NFV project, which essentially was a major push forward to drive cloud technology, in this case, virtualization, into the world of networking. The other moment that I think really made a big impact on networking was really when we decided to move DPDK into the Linux Foundation. This enabled a robust ecosystem to be created, and because of this, now DPDK has become really the de facto standard for general purpose packet processing. And if you think about what that's led to, that has led to the world now starting to virtualize at very significant rates the network. And I think where this journey really began at its heart, what really truly was in the wireless core network. And if you think about where we left 2019, roughly 40% of all network deployments in the core network were virtualized. That number is supposed to pop up another 10 points this year to 50%, and then by 2024, it's hitting 80%. And when you think about that 2024 number, that is really fueled by 5G. Because when you think about 5G, you of course think about broadband and you think about faster data rates, more capacity. But 5G is so much more than that. It's about providing all sorts of unique use cases for consumers, but also businesses alike. And when you think about businesses and you think about service providers having the right scale, agility to hit the TCO to be able to support all those plethora of use cases, you need to have a cloud-like network to be able to do that in an economic fashion. And that's where the core network comes in. And then in terms of the RAN, we're also seeing a ton of innovation out there. And you're going to see a lot of innovation in the 5G RAN because there's going to be all sorts of different frequency bands used, different use cases used across a wide variety of vertical markets. And that's why Intel is truly investing in to be able to support customers with workload optimized RAN or also in a virtual RAN setting.
Indeed, and as you said, the interesting thing we've seen is that in the traditional telco and carrier service provider space, or CSPs, there's been such large sunk costs invested in getting in cable in the ground and things in the top of poles and wires that sometimes it's a 10 to 15 year window for a return on investment. We're now seeing those very agile and nimble enterprise style development methodologies, cloud native, Docker, Kubernetes, et cetera, move into that telco space where all of that agility and rapid time to market and so forth and reduced time to return on investment is now available to them. And I think they're really excited by a number of those things, particularly getting new services to the market. I mean, the whole networking landscape's undergoing so many significant innovations, as you said, with the shift to software-defined infrastructure, software-defined networks, and even more deeply, network function virtualization. I'm keen to learn how Intel's bringing that whole full value of 5G to its product portfolio, particularly from edge to edge, so the data centers and public clouds through to the networks and out to the edge. I mean, Intel recently announced two very exciting new offerings, and particularly with the second generation Intel Xeon Scalable processor and the Atom P5900 system on chip. I wonder if we could maybe start with how the Atom P5900 system on chip plays into that whole 5G and radio access network space.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we think about the 5G RAN, as I mentioned, there's going to be a ton of different deployment types out there. So we've got a really, I would consider the broadest portfolio of silicon out there to address the diverse needs of all sorts of RAN deployments. Everything from Xeon Scalable processors to SoCs that are really built from the ground up to address the radio access network, to FPGAs, to eASICs, which are structured ASICs, to full-on ASICs. And oh, by the way, we're developing Ethernet silicon that can deal with the low latency nature of the radio access network. And then to get to your question specifically on the Atom P5900, I'm very excited about this offering. This is really the first SoC that Intel has built from the ground up to meet the needs of the base station market, and of course includes Intel architecture. This product is packed with all sorts of goodness from IA to having the right accelerators to be able to meet the low latency needs of a radio access network, as well as derive the right overall compute performance for the future. So I think this is a nice, real strong complement to our broad portfolio of products.
Indeed, and one of the great innovations I'm seeing now is that a lot of exciting response to these two platforms, particularly the system on chip with the Atom P5900, is that now organizations have got a consistent Intel architecture so that it's IA from the data center and the cloud platforms all the way to the edge. So you've got the same essential family of instruction sets, same platform. So when you're developing code, you can deploy it to the big end of town or to the edge and still get the same consistent piece of executable and binary and deployment models rather than having a really complex stack. And talking to someone the other day, they were excited about the fact they can now get Kubernetes on bare metal at the edge, which is a complete game changer for them. The other part of this announcement, of course, was the second generation scalable Xeon processor and a whole bunch of exciting features built in, such as AI capabilities and so forth. But I saw it also as a major game changer for the network space. I wonder if you could walk us through what some of those features built into the second generation Xeon scalable processor means to the network space with all the additional capacity capability it brings with it.
Absolutely. So I think so you brought up a lot of interesting points just there, and I think about the unique value proposition and really what we can bring to the table and partner with the comm service providers. One of the unique things is, as you said, is that Intel does have a full-on cloud to edge offering, meaning it's a consistent architecture that allows customers to scale all their investments from a software perspective across their entire network. And then you think about this in the era of 5G, and we talk about the buildup of new compute infrastructure much closer to the user. So we all know that there's going to be cases where the 5G core network is going to rest, let's just say 100 kilometers from a user in a typical kind of centralized core network configuration. But oftentimes, due to the latency and really the throughput requirements of specific use cases, service providers may set up SLAs that really demand that core network to be shifted forward much closer to the user. And if you design your network in a way that you have architecture consistency, it's very easy to dynamically even move those workloads around in a very seamless fashion. And then to answer the second part of your question with Xeon Scalable processor, we just did a big announcement a couple months ago. In a virtual announcement, because obviously we all know what happened with Mobile World Congress. And this announcement it was quite exciting because it is on our second generation of Xeon Scalable processor. And essentially, this is a product family that is truly at the heart of the 5G core network. It'll provide all sorts of compute performance, flexibility, and agility to really get that cloud-like scale in a 5G core network. And when you think about some of the features and some of the capabilities, when you look at it from a raw performance perspective, this is going to provide significant performance increase versus our prior generation of gold SKUs. In addition to this, we also include AI instructions directly in the Xeon processor. As we all know, AI has tons of different workloads out there, and Xeon is it is really the most flexible AI platform on the planet. In addition to this, we also have other instruction sets in there, such as AVX 512, which is a great instruction set for networking workloads.
Indeed, and having that capability to apply machine learning logic directly in the CPU is going to be such a game changer because we don't have to move it across the bus out to another piece of hardware and back in. And one of the things I really loved about the Atom P5900 was this load balancing capability of getting a channel running and then load balancing the workload across those channels. There's other exciting news that came out recently that I wanted to dive into, if you don't mind. I mean, you've had some really exciting partnership announcements come out. And not just sort of the traditional XYZ working with you on a particular platform, but some really big initiatives around the transformations you're talking about, where we're not just doing essentially another iterative step of X times faster, but this is a real game changer in some of those cases. I wonder if you could maybe dive into some of those recent announcements and what that news means across the whole telco space with Intel.
Yes, and when we think about our journey really as a network silicon company, our journey is all about partnership and really working with a diverse set of ecosystem players, whether it's the comm service providers directly or ISVs or traditional telecom equipment manufacturers to server OEMs. And it's really critical that this entire ecosystem pulls together very strong solutions for a 5G network build out. And I think there's really probably there's many different collaborations I could draw up, but there's really two that maybe I'll mention today, because one is in the space of mobile edge computing, so really talking about edge as we've been, and the second is around virtualized RAN. So first, from a mobile edge computing standpoint, we've been partnering with a number of different service providers as well as ecosystem vendors. But one in particular, one partnership and one use case really stands out. So our partnership with China Unicom, and in that partnership with China Unicom, they set out to deliver a multi-cloud environment at the edge of their network. So essentially, as you would guess, they partner with Intel on silicon, but they partner with us to do so much more than just silicon. They integrated our OpenNest software. And what our OpenNest software did is it helped them set up this multi-edge computing at the edge of their network, but also set up in a way that they can now steer traffic to the right edge location to be able to meet the unique use cases coming from a wide variety of SLAs from their customers. Because we all know with 5G build out, it's about a lot of business-to-business use cases, so you must be able to deliver to tight SLAs. So OpenNest was a critical part of that solution. But in addition to this, they also utilize our OpenVINO software. This OpenVINO software is great for edge inferencing. In this case, they're going to use this for smart city and facial recognition applications. And then finally, if you look at their offering, they set up this multi-cloud environment to be able to support not only their own applications coming from China Unicom, but also support applications and the development environment coming from cloud service providers. So they launched this solution first with Tencent. And this solution is actually now available in 3 provinces in China. So it's a great example of how cloud service providers, comm service providers, and Intel can come together to deliver a true multi-cloud environment and take advantage of 5G long-term to deliver all sorts of low latency services. And then the next collaboration that I think is really strong as well is we have collaborated with the industry on virtualizing the radio access network, really across multiple service providers, multiple OEMs, and multiple ISVs and traditional telecom equipment manufacturers. And in this case, most recently, we did partner with Telefonica, and you probably saw that they announced a really strong ecosystem collaboration with several vendors to drive O-RAN supporting both 4G and 5G. And now they're starting to trial this, or they announced trials across many locations around the globe, including UK, Germany, Spain, and Brazil. And then this development that Telefonica is driving, it is of course based on Intel's FlexRAN reference architecture as well as our Xeon Scalable processors.
There's a lot of exciting things to unbundle, and a couple of things that really jump out at me is the whole idea of multi-cloud at the edge, which is exciting. I think we're going to see a really interesting transition now where telecom providers are in effect partly cloud providers, and that, as you said, those B2B use cases now where enterprises and organizations, whether it's at the very unique and niche space of autonomous things like autonomous vehicles, autonomous trucks, autonomous drones, logic running in the telecoms cloud at the edge to deliver business services, or whether it's traditional businesses who might say, rather than putting into a generic public cloud, we might put it into the telco cloud because that's where most of the data is moving in our infrastructure. I think these are going to be significant game changers. The big thing that really jumped out at me there, though, Dan, was just the consistent openness. Like everything that we've been talking about consistently talks about open platforms, open architectures. And I think this is the big game changer we're going to see in 2020, 2021, where organizations can now realize that if they're building cloud native apps, things that, they're refactoring their own code or getting other third-party products, those things can run from, as you said, from the center of the data center and the heart of the data center infrastructure to the public clouds and private clouds to the telco clouds, so now right out to the edge, that one piece of business logic that they might have developed in their own networks, their own labs, can run from end to end. And that, again, that openness is going to be such a big game changer. I wonder if we could maybe just wrap up with one little quick insight into some of the takeaways you could advise for viewers. There's some really big challenges we're seeing around the place, whether it's ensuring that people have got the right skilled resources, people with the right coding capability, the right security and network capability. Seems to be a bit of a HR challenge, preparing for these rollouts and deployments and the transformation it requires. Preparedness in their own labs, having the right infrastructure, making sure that they've got the new, second generation Xeon Scalable processor and Atom P5900 System on chip in those labs and getting hands-on. And then in some cases, having an actual roadmap bolted to the deployments in their regions and globally. I wonder if you could give us just a couple of little key tips that you think that, takeaways that people might take back into their organizations to try and action straight away to ensure that they are ahead of the curve as opposed to in catch-up mode.
Yeah, so when I think about that, I definitely think about both today and tomorrow. And when I think about where the world is going and where networking is going, it's all about having an automated network that's very easy to scale and has all sorts of agility in it, so you can address not only the traditional network workloads, but also building out and scaling out for all sorts of new compute services in the era of 5G. So with that said, I really think about comm service providers further investing in all sorts of IT capabilities that, in a way that's allowing them to truly automate their infrastructure and get cloud-like scale and agility. So thinking about investing in assets and in people that have all sorts of diverse backgrounds, particularly in Kubernetes, as companies and service providers look to truly bring that sort of architecture in to the world of networking. And with that architecture, you can do wondrous things, whether it's, as I mentioned earlier, whether it's, dynamically porting and moving your UPF, your 5G UPF, sometimes located centrally in the core network, other times maybe even on-prem in a private enterprise or private network type deployment, to scaling all sorts of other compute workloads like media in a dynamic fashion. So that would be the big thing to focus on, is bringing in the right talent that can really drive a network to get that cloud-like scale.
Well, Dan, it's been great to catch up with you. It's always a pleasure to see you, and thank you so much for making time to see us. And I'm looking forward to catching up in person soon when things open up. But I'm glad to hear that you and your crew are all safe and well, and I'm sure that will continue to be the case. And thanks so much for so many great insights and key takeaways. And yeah, look, I look forward to having you on the show again soon. And as I said, maybe hopefully in person.
Yeah, it'll be great to catch up in person, and I'm glad that you're safe and healthy as well. So it's good chatting with you.
Thank you, Dan. And finally, a quick note for our viewers. Thank you for tuning in. We will, of course, have a lot more information in the show description below. So there'll be a series of links directly to the key resources we've discussed today and a range of other information that you can download, read, view, and so forth. And ensure you join the conversation online through social media and digital platforms. So find Dan on LinkedIn and follow him and keep up to date with all of his great announcements and posts. And join the conversation on Twitter and so forth, and follow Intel there and across all the things they're doing around the network space and network builders. And in the meantime, stay safe, be well, and we look forward to seeing you in the next show. And Dan, thank you again. It's been great to see you.
Thank you very much, Des.